Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. I hope you guys had a great weekend. Obviously, I am not there today, so what we're going to do is we're going to take some notes in your note packet, and then you guys are going to have an opportunity to work on the next section of homework. Module 6, lesson 3 should have been completed by the time you walked in the door, and then you're going to have time today to work on Module 6, lesson 4. You need to make sure that it is done before you leave. Make sure you turn it in to the back table and give it to the substitute before you guys leave. I will not accept Module 6, Lesson 4 if you are present in class today and you don't turn it in. So please make sure that you are working diligently in order to get everything done. So on Friday when we took notes, we were talking about American expansion, and what we were seeing is that we had acquired all these new islands, but we really weren't sure how we should deal with them. We do not believe in colonialism as former colonies. Although we are following imperialism, we don't know if they should become states, should they become territories, or should they be free and independent. So under the Faulkner Act, we decided that we were actually going to set up a civil government in Puerto Rico. The United States president will have the right to appoint Puerto Rican's governor and members to the upper house, and then Puerto Rican citizens would be able to vote for the lower house. People are not necessarily happy with that because they believe that the U.S. Constitution should have prevented that. The U.S. Constitution does not permit control of territories. They're not eventually going to become states. So eventually this whole entire issue is going to be addressed by the Supreme Court in a series of cases, which are the insular cases. So what the end result of these cases basically says is that the U.S. Constitution does not apply to people in U.S. territories because they are not citizens. So you need to actually be a citizen in order for this idea of the Constitution to apply to you. Eventually, we are going to apply citizenship to Puerto Ricans. They are going to get citizenship in 1917, and Puerto Ricans are eventually going to be able to elect both houses under the insular case. So the president still is going to be able to appoint the governor, but the upper house and the lower house are now going to be elected by the population. All right, next is moving on to what do we do with Cuba. We won Cuba after the Spanish-American War, but we don't know what to do with it. Cuba actually was technically granted independence from Spain before U.S. occupation, but we are under U.S. occupation now. So Jose Marti, who is going to be a Cuban revolutionary leader, is really unsure what the United States is planning on doing. He believes the United States is just replacing the Spanish as colonial rulers and is not happy by that. So Cubans that protested American rule were either imprisoned or exiled so that we can control the population. The U.S. does do some positive things inside of Cuba, improve sanitation and medical research. The most important one is the elimination of yellow fever, which we're going to talk about when we get to the Panama Canal tomorrow. So there's going to be over 400 Americans that are going to die during combat in the Spanish-American War, but there are going to be 5,000 that actually died from yellow fever. So after the war is over, American troops stationed in Cuba also are going to continue to die from yellow fever. So it's not until a U.S. Army doctor, Walter Reed, arrives inside of Cuba that he finds the cure for yellow fever. Basically, he has to figure out what actually starts it. And what he saw was lots of standing water inside of Cuba and around houses. And because of the jungle environment. So he actually proves that yellow fever is caused by a mosquito, and one of the ways to reduce the mosquito population is actually to get rid of standing water. So he's going to improve ventilation inside of the houses. So in that one picture, what you actually see is the houses of his actual experiment. And his experiment was that he had soldiers that were going to have no ventilation inside of their homes. They're going to have no windows, and also they're going to be near standing water, compared to soldiers that had ventilation, mosquito nets, and we removed all the water and found out that, again, improved ventilation and removing standing water reduced your yellow fever outbreaks. The Cuban government is then going to pass a constitution, but their constitution does not actually address what to do with the United States and the relationship between the United States and Cuba. So America needs to solidify this, and we need to clear it up because we do not want European powers in the Western Hemisphere. So we come up with a Platt Amendment and say that it must be added to the Cuban Constitution. Under the Platt Amendment, Cuba could not limit their independence in any way, so they could not become part of another country's territory, and they could not become involved with any other treaties with other countries. The United States could intervene train into Cuba if we thought things were getting out of control, because again, it is only 90 miles off the coast of Florida, and Cuba can sell and or lease land to the United States, which they do with Guantanamo Bay, which is going to be our oldest military base, which is located overseas. Possessing colonies and territories had provided European countries with raw materials and markets, and that's exactly the same thing that we are looking to do as a major exporting nation. The only problem is that we do not have an empire. So we are concerned that as we start to travel around and selling our goods and getting natural resources, the European countries are going to be concerned about this and potentially can act with either an invasion of the United States or grabbing the islands that we have just acquired. So again, we're concerned that foreign nations eventually are going to block American trade. So we're going to have to try to figure out how do we be friendly with European countries at the same time improve our economic situation. So, in the Philippines, again, we are not completely sure what to do with the Philippines. So we do get involved there with the Filipino War, but we do not want things to get out of control. So we need to maintain control of the Western Hemisphere, which means we need to maintain control of the Philippines, and these are the three reasons why we are interested. Philippines is going to be a very strategic location, just like all the other islands we've talked about, but it is considered to be the gateway to Asia. We want to trade with China, and we want to trade with Japan. We don't believe Filipinos are actually ready for self-rule or independence, so we want to help them on the way to creating a stable democracy inside of the country. And if we did not gain control, some other country would. So we are very, very nervous that another country is going to actually start to claim the Philippines. So that is why the United States is going to try to explain why imperialism is a new foreign policy goal. Many Americans are not convinced that this is the best interest of our country. We are concerned about getting involved in foreign entanglements and those leading to war. Filipinos may impact the American governmental system if they become full-fledged citizens and have the right to vote. So that is an argument against granting them statehood. And again, we are looking at the morality of imperialism. Can we actually control another region but not actually own it? So fighting eventually is going to break out between American forces and Filipino nationalists. Emiliano Aguinaldo is going to be the nationalist of the Filipinos, and he is going to want the Philippines to be declared completely independent. And again, you got to remember, they were declared independent, or they did gain their independence when they fought the Spanish with the Americans. Aguinaldo is going to be the first person start off to fight a conventional war against the United States, but realizes that they do not have the resources in order to win that type of war. So he's going to switch over to a guerrilla warfare, which is combat that involves surprise attacks, ambushes, and raids. We are going to lose a lot of men due to the use of guerrilla warfare. Aguinaldo and the Filipino nationalists are going to face many obstacles. Please make sure, in case I did not go back and highlight many obstacles, that should be bold and yellow. So make sure you go back and do that. One of the reasons the obstacles is they do not have other countries who are willing to help them. Many of the European countries, their empires are reducing, and they're fearful of the power of the United States, so they are not willing to get involved. They also have shortages of weapons and ammunition because they were not an independent country prior to that, and also just the basic geographical complexity of the islands. The islands are going to be filled of lots of different, swamps, and it's going to be very, very difficult for people to get through. So it's very, very hard to create this united army when you've got different segments of the army in different areas, and the areas are not going to be able to communicate effectively together. So when we take a look at the American-Spanish War and we take a look at the Filipino War, we are looking at a lot of brutality from both sides. We need to make sure that we go back and remember we have yellow journalism going against Spain and the Spanish-American War. And then we're going to basically find out that when we are fighting the Filipinos, we are going to be doing the exact same thing. So from the U.S. side, we're going to burn a lot of bridges. We also have the Reconcentration Act, which is going to relocate rural populations into concentration camps, which is going to be one of the major reasons why we say we needed to get involved in Cuba. We also are going to torture suspected guerrillas. On the Filipino side, they are going to torture captured soldiers and also terrorize citizens that decide to cooperate with the United States. Basically, all told, the mass majority of the population is going to suffer. Citizens are going to die due to fighting, cholera, malaria, and also food shortages. What the United States does inside of the Philippines is use a new fighting technique, which is called the policy of attraction. And under the policy of attraction, we attempt to win over key elites inside of the Filipino population, leaders and business leaders, in order for them to basically learn how to become democratic and eventually form this self-government, have social reforms, and also economic development. Basically, what they're trying to do is undermine the revolution. If I provide you with a better alternative to the revolution, maybe you will decide that you want to join that alternative, become democratic, and then the United States, through this new government, which would be considered a puppet government because it's going to be controlled by the United States, is going to then be able to impact affairs inside of the Philippines. Eventually, the United States is going to declare victory on July 4th of 1902, and then we're going to issue the Jones Act, which is going to promise the Philippines eventually will become independent. So in 1935, the Philippines is going to become a Commonwealth, and then in 1946, they are going to be granted independence. All right, last thing for today is going to take a look at China. The Philippines, again, important strategic location, trying to get to China and trying to get to Japan and Asia to open up markets. Three basic reasons why. We need to have the markets, we need to build railroads, and the countries right now are going to be considered to be relatively weak. European countries are already creating spheres of influence inside of China, and that is a major concern because we think that the sphere could be shut down to American trade, and that's the whole entire reason we're trying to go out. We need to make sure our second industrial revolution continues. We need to make sure that we continue our economic progress. So after expansion in the Caribbean, we are now looking at new acquisitions. People do not support new acquisitions in Asia, so we can't go and claim territory there. So instead, John Hay comes up with the idea of an open door policy. For it to go back and just take a look at what a sphere of influence is, it's areas which a nation claims special rights and economic privileges. So John Hay, and please make sure that you go back and highlight that, is going to draft the open door policy so that all nations are going to share equal trading rights with the United States, that no single nation is able to create a monopoly for trade inside of China, and only the Chinese government has the ability to collect taxes. They're struggling economically. There's going to be a series of foreign invasions and also a series of domestic unrest inside of China. So this is going to give them some economic stability and hopefully so their government's going to be able to survive. So at this point, what I would like you to do is to either get a textbook that's on the side counter, or you can open up Blackboard and use your PDF file in order to access Module 6, or you can just use your online textbook in order to complete Module 6, Lesson 4. You need to make sure that you get that done before the end of the period today, and I will get them all graded for you tomorrow, and I will go over the rest of the homework assignments, and then we'll finish our note pack. We got one more video to watch, and then after that we'll be ready for our test on Thursday. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.